Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a B-movie review and I'll be having a look at the movie Night Claws, also known as Apex Predator. So this film is about a Sasquatch basically, and it's obviously going to be a low budget movie because you've probably never heard of it. So this is set around a kind of small American town which is surrounded by woodland areas and actually being sort of terrorized by some kind of unknown creature which starts off by attacking these two sort of young teenagers who are making out in the car as they kind of normally do in these type of films. And basically it falls down to the town sheriff, played by Reb Brown, to kind of find out what's going on, and sort of as evidence starts mounting up that there may be something sort of unknown origin actually sort of doing these killings. He's sort of joined by this woman who says she's a sort of scientist to try and find out what's going on and kind of get evidence about actually this sort of Bigfoot, this creature. Now, along with these characters, there's also a whole bunch of other sort of characters actually involved in the film, which do have quite a lot of screen time. There's this kind of five sort of people who are sort of going out into the wilderness to try and learn how to become sort of survivalists and kind of live off the land. And you've also got this kind of bunch of almost mercenary types that are trying to actually hunt Bigfoot itself, and a few assorted college kids and whatnot who just wander out in the woods. Now, it's a very, very simple film. It really is just people sort of stumbling across these sort of Bigfoot creature and basically just getting killed by it, really. There's very little in the way of kind of characterization and really sort of depth to this movie. It's obviously a low budget film, but there's a couple of things that really kind of make it seem cheaper than your normal sort of fodder that you'll kind of get in this type of movie. So the first thing is I want to talk about the editing. So I actually think this film is fairly poorly edited. It's kind of one of the first things I've noticed about it. And what I mean by that is you'll see quite a lot of shots where you can almost imagine that the director's sort of saying, you know, action, and then the kind of people sort of start walking from like a stationary point and, you know, to sort of go into the scene. But it just seems that with the editing, a lot of the times you'll see them sort of stationary and then kind of start to move forward, like just before, you know, then the take should be maybe a couple of a second or so before it should have started, if that makes sense. So there's a couple of instances where that's happened, but the whole general feel of this film is kind of a cheap and almost amateurish effort. The actual acting itself, I mean, that doesn't help the editing, but the actual acting itself seems really uninvolved. People just kind of almost just start reading lines of a piece of paper. That's the way it's kind of portrayed. I think that, you know, that's down to both the acting and the directing. The special effects on this movie, you don't see a lot of this kind of creature. When you do see it, I suppose it's passable. It really is just a man in a suit, and you know, I guess it's okay effects for a kind of a really low budget movie, but it's nothing you're going to be that impressive. It's got like an animatronic mouth and things like that. It looks basically like a bit like a gorilla, to be quite honest. It normally attacks at night, so you don't see it particularly well until very kind of the last kind of scenes, really. It's okay. It very much reminds me of these kind of 50s kind of like horror films that you used to get, where they just kind of have these sort of creatures kind of running around in the woods and things like that, and it just seems there's very little to it. There's very little substance there. There is an attempt to have a little bit of a twist towards the end, but I think when you actually think about where that has come from and the character involved that's actually involved in the twist, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And what actually happens is you don't end up having a kind of a character to sort of really root for. So there's not really a kind of a protagonist here that is a particularly interesting character or a particularly well-developed character. So unfortunately, this film, I have to say, is pretty forgettable. I mean, I guess it's okay, and a very sort of jokey, like this is a very bad movie type film. But to be quite honest, I have seen better bad movies, if that makes sense. So I'm going to have to give this one probably a 2.5 out of 10. It's pretty forgettable. Have you seen it? What are your thoughts? Leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.